There's some people who are vegetarian because they just simply don't want to kill animals. Okay? And fine. Again, it's a free country. Eat plants if you want. This is not the issue here. Those same people might have a humane mousetrap in their basement. They don't want to snap the neck of a mouse that wanders too far. So it's trapped live. Now you got to check on it every couple of days because mice dry up really quickly. So you got to check up on them, and then you find the mouse and you release it into the wild. You feel good because you didn't kill the mouse. Maybe you didn't realize that by returning the mouse to the wild, you have doomed it to be consumed by all manner of woodland predators, from owls, foxes, snakes, crows. And the average life expectancy of a mouse in the wild is between 9 and 18 months, whereas in the comfort of your basement, they could live up to 6 years. So here you are wanting to save the lives of rodents, yet you are dooming them to an early death. As long as you're self-aware of that, and you still want to doom it to an early death, go right ahead. It's your house, okay?
So Neil prefaces this part of the video saying that we live in a world where if you give somebody new information or information that doesn't necessarily agree with what they think, their instinctual response is just to attack you. He then gives an example of informing a vegan of the potential negative consequences of putting a humanely trapped mouse back into the wild. So let's try to discuss what he said without necessarily attacking him. Now, it seems that Neil has made a bunch of claims and didn't really provide any evidence for them. But even if I grant that everything he said was true, I mean, simply put, what one ought do in this scenario is going to depend on the moral system of the vegan in question. There are vegans, for example myself, who take a more rights-based approach to veganism. I personally don't consider it a rights violation to not kill a mouse who was intruded into my home and then let them back into the wild. Intuitively, it seems hard to believe that a vegan would consider it a moral obligation to house any and all mice that intrude into their home simply because releasing them into the wild may result in more suffering. I'd consider it morally virtuous to do such a thing, but definitely not obligatory.
He said what one ought to do is going to depend on the moral system of the vegan in question. We can say the same thing for buying animal products. Whether a vegan ought or ought not to buy animal products is going to depend on the moral system of that vegan. Just like the fate of the mouse depends on what a vegan personally believes. The ethics of buying animal products could also depend upon it. I could be a vegan who takes rights-based approach, but personally not to consider buying animal products to be rights violations. Him objecting to this would be contradictory. If there is no moral obligation to do something which may result in less suffering, like allowing a mouse to stay in your basement, then I could say the same thing for buying animal products. There is no moral obligation to abstain from animal products, even if it may result in less suffering. I could consider it morally virtuous to do so, but definitely not an obligation. If we follow his line of reasoning, we can reach veganism, which allows buying animal products.